Hey guys, welcome back to Main Street Living. Ladies, I'm so excited to actually meet our next guest because I don't know if I ever shared this story, but I have this one friend that insists that his screenplay is going to be the next big blockbuster. But life has happened over and over and over again. Things keep changing. I hate to be negative, but I don't think he's ever going to finish the script.
Oh
no. Well, some of them get finished. Sometimes they do finish. And we have a real life successful screenwriter and producer, Chris Sparling, here to tell us about his process and his latest project. Welcome to Main Street Living, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
So, Chris, throughout the course of human history, an awful lot of people have tried to write a screenplay or think they could write a movie. How did you get into it? And what was difficult about it that maybe you didn't realize would be?
Well, I mean, I got into it. I started years ago as an actor and then just kind of started messing around saying, well, let me try writing a little bit. And then I was kind of one day like, I think I'm actually better at that. So maybe I'll focus on that from now on. So that's what it was. And then, what you don't realize, I think, is how difficult it actually is to get a movie made. There are, 1,000 reasons why a movie will never happen. And that's something you kind of at the outset don't consider.
Chris, full disclosure, I, of course, was IMDb stalking you. And so I was looking at some of the movies you've worked on, and a lot of them are pretty scary. So how do you come up with the ideas for your movies?
Yeah, which is weird because you're right. A lot of them are, and I'm not like that sort of a person in general. But so I don't know why that turned out to be the case. But I mean, ideas for me come, I don't know, randomly, just like anybody else. If I'm driving, something may occur to me, or sometimes you see something that you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And you kind of play the what if game. You're like, what if this happened? What if all of a sudden, I don't know, aliens took over Earth, whatever it is, right? You kind of do that. And then you walk around with these ideas for a while. And if they're sticking with you, you kind of say, all right, well, maybe there's something to that one.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember, I think it is Buried, one of the ones you worked on with Ryan Reynolds. I mean, my goodness, that one stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah, you've got so many out there. And
yeah, that was a messed up movie.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I was like in college watching it and I couldn't sleep for like a week. So
I know a lot of these movies are like that. And we had you on the show back in 2020 to talk about Greenland. And that was a really scary disaster movie. And now you have a new movie out, which is still scary, but on a much more personal level and something that unfortunately a lot of us can really relate to. It's called The Desperate Hour. Tell us a little bit about that story and what prompted you to write that and want to turn that into a movie.
Well, I mean, like you said, a lot of the stuff I've written has been kind of scary, but it's kind of the projects are scary in their own way, depending on what it is. Greenland was a disaster movie. I've done movies that are dramas. This is more of a dramatic thriller. And what The Desperate Hour is about a mom played by Naomi Watts, who's out for a morning run, and she's way out, past her house and everything, when she gets an alert from her kid's school that there's an active shooter incident. And I mean, it's a parent's worst nightmare. And she's so far from home by this point that just going back home and getting in the car is not an option. So now she is, she's just a mom. She's just an everyday person like me, like you, and totally, feeling helpless and just wanting to be there for her child.
Yeah, it's almost too real at this point. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Noah, you're gonna be late. Listen, I was thinking we could do family night tonight. Movie, dinner. Okay, I'm going for a run.
Placed on lockdown due to an ongoing incident.
I'm 5 miles from home. I don't have a car, and tell me what's happening.
There are 5 people barricaded. Your son is one of them, and so is the suspect. Our negotiator's in contact with
He doesn't have your negotiator's son, does he? He has mine and an AR-15. Do something about it! Noah, Mom, where are you?
Help, he's here.
Who's here?
I'm scared.
Noah, don't... Pull up the internal drives.
That's illegal, Amy.
He has my boy. I need his phone number. I'm coming to get you, honey. He's a good kid.
Mrs. Carr, this is Detective Ed Olson. There's been a new development.
Unknown number.
Who is it?
My son's there with you.
You're lying. You're the police.
No, I'm his mom. Tell me how I can help you.
SWAT has entered the East Wing.
Please hurry. Please hurry.
Who are you talking to?
What?
Who are you talking to?
You.
You're a liar. You're
What?
the police.
No,
Who's
I'm
out
not
there?
the police.
Tell me where he is!
Okay, Chris, that sent goosebumps up my spine. I felt her anxiety watching that, and if I get that from just the trailer, I can't imagine what the movie is going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard hitting stuff. I mean, it's this, and it's worth pointing out though too that the topic itself obviously is a very fraught one when you're dealing with guns and school shootings in particular. And for me, I had no interest in making a movie that showed the actual violence occurring. So the entire movie, and this is important to keep in mind, the entire movie takes place from her perspective on the outside. So we never actually see what's going on in the school. But the important thing about that, on top of my lack of a desire to show that stuff at the school, is that it speaks to kind of how helpless she is, because all she's relying on is her phone to get information. And that to me is also in a way, representative of and emblematic of what we deal with every day in society now, where we rely on our phones for everything, and
Right.
and the information is sometimes correct or half correct and everything else, and to a certain extent it's great to have access to information, but other times it could really be detrimental if it's not the accurate information.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and we're going to take a quick break, Chris, but will you stick around with us for a few more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect. We will continue this interview and woo, get some more perspective on everything he's doing coming up next, right here on Main Street Living. Welcome back to Main Street Living. Well, we are back here with screenwriter and producer Chris Sparling to talk about his new movie with Naomi Watts. And wow, what a thrilling interview this has been already. Just lots of feelings here, lots of goosebumps. And so, Chris, thank you for sticking with us a few more minutes.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you.
So we were talking about your last movie now that has come out. And what do you think draws you into writing these very suspenseful crisis stories?
Another thing that's a thing that's really important when you're doing any kind of storytelling is conflict and stakes. That's really what drives a story. Without those things, we kind of tune out. And when you're dealing with, be it an asteroid about to hit the Earth, like Greenland, and that's obviously very, very high stakes. Or in the case of this movie, a mom trying to be there for her child, and in probably the worst circumstance imaginable. You're immediately dealing with such high stakes. I mean, life or death stakes. And so I don't want to say it's cheat or a shortcut, but it's certainly easier to kind of draw in an audience with stakes that high than say, I don't know, if you were making a movie about just two people that just constantly get along and have nothing wrong with their lives. And even if they have to accomplish something, it's not a big deal if they do or don't, so that lack of stakes makes it just seem less compelling to us. So kind of flipping that on its head, I probably dial that too far sometimes to 11, but so be it.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's so interesting because I think there's even a generation of people who love watching or listening to true crime podcasts or things of that nature. And it's kind of horrific. And I mean, in this situation, something that maybe hits again really close to home. What is it about these movies that we love to watch them or need to watch them?
Well, I mean, I think cinema at its best when it works and is when you walk out of the theater and you feel something beyond just, oh, that was a good movie. I don't want to say it teaches you a lesson, because that's not really what I'm saying. It's more that you go through the experience in a visceral way, right? Without having to actually deal with the real life consequences as if you went through it in person. But you feel it. You I don't know, if whatever it is, maybe you go and you're like, I should really go call so and so because I haven't talked to them in a while. And you're like, well, why? Well, because I saw this movie and it just made me just really stop and think about life for a moment. And so stuff like that. I mean, I think that's part of it. And again, that does come down to stakes. Is that you feel like the character you just sat for 2 hours and watched, went through the unthinkable and had a lot on the line. And again, it's fake, but there's just something about it when it's working that just reaches you in a very specific way, I think.
It touches your soul and it makes you realize how
Yeah.
fragile life really is. That's what we got out of watching the trailer for The Desperate Hour. And in addition to writing this, you also produced this movie. So
Mhm.
what's it like to be so hands-on and involved in making your story really come to life and touch people's souls?
I've produced a few movies now, this being one of them, and I've done it more and more. There are producers that's what they do, and they're great producers. And I've kind of become a producer more and more in my stuff to kind of remain part of that creative process beyond just writing the script. With this, I was very hands-on, and it's an interesting process to be the writer and a producer because you're sometimes forced to make tough decisions between maybe you might be like, oh, but I really love that scene that I wrote or whatever. But the producer side of you is saying, yeah, but it doesn't work. So you have to kill it. So it's kind of a weird duality to it. But no, I mean, it's such an extensive process. The hour and a half or whatever movie any movie becomes, there's so many hours of work that go into distilling it down to that. And we did this movie over the course of, basically during the acute phase of the pandemic. So much of post-production in particular was done by Zoom. So it's that in and of itself was a surreal process to be basically at my house on my computer as an example, to say like when the soundtrack, the score was being done, I believe it was like I could see on my computer at home that we have the symphony and they're like in Eastern Europe and the composer's in London, the director Philip Noyce is in LA, and I live in Rhode Island. I'm in Rhode Island in my kitchen watching this happen, and we're all communicating. So it was a very surreal and unique experience. But truth be told, it's always unique and interesting in its own way.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, there's a million reasons why a movie won't get made. So it's incredible that you were able to be so involved, be a producer, be a writer, and get this one made. Where can viewers go watch The Desperate Hour?
Yes, they can go to, if they have Hulu, if they subscribe, they can see it there for free. Well, free if you subscribe to Hulu. And then you could also rent it on iTunes or Amazon Prime.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. I followed you on Twitter as well. I see that information on the screen too.
So I apologize in advance for anything I might say.
Oh, you've been such a treat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Wow. Well, Cheryl, I still have those goosebumps, but we're going to switch things up in our next segment here and hear from an international pop star right here on Main Street Living.